When Android flagships come out, iPhone 18 could change everything. If Apple's rumored split release timetable is true, it might compel the whole industry to change its release dates in a big way. Apple has usually released its primary phone line in September or October since the iPhone 4S came out in 2011. In the past, Android phone makers put a lot of effort into launching their flagship phones at shows like Mobile World Congress. But over the years, it seemed like the whole industry was getting closer to providing the greatest new Android phones that were closer to Apple's most recent iPhone. This year, Android flagships have come out that are quite similar to Apple's SoC, which means that new Android flagships have come out that are very similar to the iPhone 17 series. Android OEMs were just starting to get used to this rhythm when Apple seemed to be on its way to run at a different speed. 1. The iPhone 18 series might come out in 2 seasons instead of 1. Bloomberg says that Apple is going to change the way it launches iPhones in a big way by releasing more phones and spreading out the rollout. Apple is going to spread out its releases more evenly between September and February or March starting in 2026. Instead of one big launch event in September and a smaller, less frequent iPhone E series debut in February or March, Apple will have more releases in these 2 months. In fall 2026, probably in September, Apple is rumored to debut the iPhone 18 Pro, iPhone 18 Pro Max, and its first foldable phone, reportedly called the iPhone Fold. Curiously lacking would be the base iPhone 18 and a likely upgrade of the iPhone Air. These missing phones are then likely to be unveiled alongside the iPhone 18e 6 months later. This pattern is projected to continue for years to come, with Apple launching between 5 and 6 models annually, the biggest number of phones company has launched in a single year in previous times. Apple's new plan will bring steadier revenue throughout the year, rather than concentrating it all immediately before the holiday season. It would minimize the load on employees, as well as manufacturing partners and their supply chain, and prevent the phones from cannibalizing each other's marketing efforts. 2. How will the new iPhone release timetable potentially affect Android launches? The Bloomberg report claimed that spreading out debuts provides Apple many chances each year to challenge fresh releases from competitors like Samsung. What I anticipate will happen is in the opposite direction. We're likely to witness a huge split emerge in how Android flagships are launched. Like it or not, Apple's new release strategy will set the tone for Android phone releases for the next decade. As indicated at the outset, we've already witnessed this trend with Android flagship SoC debuts, which are inching towards the iPhone launch, and Android flagships launching weeks, rather than months, following the iPhone launch. I expect that in the following years, more and more Android OEMs will lean towards introducing their premium flagships, the Pros and the Ultras, in the run-up to the holiday season, exactly like Apple does. The same will likewise pan out for foldable, with everyone coincidentally discovering their sync around iPhone Fold's launch. However, the base flagships, value flagships, mid-rangers, and entry-level phones will now migrate closer to a February-March and April launch window, as per my estimate. These are the Android phones that will compete against the base iPhone and the iPhone E, so it makes sense for Android OEMs to put their best foot forward immediately around Apple's debut. This transformation will take a few years while the entire product development cycle and the supply chain adjust to the new schedule, so we should expect a gradual transition. Android OEMs will certainly make every excuse they can to convince you that the choice isn't driven by Apple, but it's common practice now to replicate Apple to compete against it in the best way possible. 3. How would the new iPhone release schedule potentially affect Samsung launches? For Samsung, I believe that the South Korean corporation will shortly club the Galaxy S Ultra launch with the Z Fold launch, pushing it closer to the fall season to better compete against the iPhone Pro and iPhone Fold. Meanwhile, the base Galaxy S and maybe the Galaxy FE launch could find their sweet spot closer to the base iPhone and iPhone E launch. Models like the Galaxy S Plus, Galaxy S Edge, and even the Z Flip might be introduced in either window, as they fit into both buckets. 4. How would the new iPhone release schedule potentially affect Google launches? Google's launches are already quite tightly linked to this new Apple launch. The significant change I expect for Google would be the decoupling of the base Pixel launch from its typical October release and giving it room alongside the debut of the Pixel series in April. The October launch might then primarily focus on premium phones, such as the Pixel Pro series, including the Pixel Pro Fold. 5. Heavyweight. Is Apple adding more to the iPhone 18 Pro Max? Even the iPhone 17 Pro Max is a giant, but for its successor, Apple presumably intends to add more due to the camera, cooling, and new CPUs. Apple is considering another weight increase with the iPhone 18 Pro Max. The top model, coming in fall 2026, is believed to be thicker and heavier than Apple's current heavyweight iPhone 17 Pro Max, reports the well-known leaker Instant Digital from Asia, who has often been correct in the past. The device will reportedly weigh 240 grams, and the case will be a little bit thicker than previously. Next year, Apple will launch a more practical fitness device, joked Instant Digital on the Chinese microblogging service Weibo. 6. iPhones are becoming larger. Air isn't catching on. Even the iPhone 17 Pro Max was no lightweight at 231 grams, EU version, US variant 2 grams more. And if the source is right, Apple would add another 9 grams. The increase itself might not be very visible, but the 6.9-inch smartphone will bulge out of your pants or jacket pocket considerably more than it already does. Currently, Apple's top iPhone is 8.75mm thick, not including the camera platform, which oddly matches to the thickness of its younger sibling, the iPhone 17 Pro with 6.3 inches. However, the latter weighs substantially less at 204 grams US model, additionally 2 grams more. Apple has tried to introduce the thinnest iPhone ever to customers with the iPhone Air. However, the model, which only has a back camera and is extremely pricey, doesn't seem to be catching on. Apple has apparently already partially ceased production and is now considering to postpone a second edition of the Air. The manufacturer has worked on the model for a long time. Despite its thinness, it is surprisingly stable. However, people don't seem to want to accept the downsides, such as the aforementioned single camera. 7. What Apple wants to do with the added weight. It is unclear what is causing the iPhone 18 Pro Max to become significantly heavier. It's feasible that Apple will expand the battery again. Currently, Apple employs a capacity of 4,832 milliamps in the 17 Pro Max. Models without a physical SIM card have 5,088 milliamps. For comparison, some Android smartphones have already reached over 7,000 milliamps. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is expected to be supplied with a newer chipset and better camera technology, among other things. An iPhone 18 Pro is also planned, according to speculations, as well as the first Apple foldable. An iPhone 18 could be postponed to early 2027. 8. What's happening with the iPhone Air? The Bloomberg story also addressed speculations about the iPhone Air's deferral, claiming that it wasn't truly scheduled for a refresh in 2026, which is why Apple didn't refer to it as the iPhone 17 Air. Apple's decision not to add a number to the retail name signals it's a separate phone line that isn't supposed to be bound to an annual release timetable alongside the main iPhone series. The iPhone Air 2's main focus is now supposed to be a switch to a 2-nanometer technology rather than any big structural modifications. The source also suggests that the iPhone Air is more of a technological exercise for Apple on its route to constructing the iPhone Fold. The iPhone Fold is expected to use many of the same materials, miniaturization processes, internal components, batteries, and software optimizations as the iPhone Air, and the Air prepares Apple's supply chain for the Fold. It remains to see how everything works out. However, one thing is certain: 2026 will be a dramatically different year for phone launches. Apple wants to split its iPhone launches into spring and autumn starting in 2026, eliminating the usual annual October unveiling. This strategy divides expensive models for September releases and lower-priced versions for spring, driven by rivalry in China and revenue concentration. The change represents the most major adjustment to Apple's product launch method in over a decade. According to Bloomberg reporter Mark Gurman, the company will introduce high-end devices in fall 2026, including the iPhone 18 Pro, iPhone 18 Pro Max, and Apple's first foldable iPhone. A future iPhone Air update may join these 3 to 4 premium variants. This lineup targets consumers seeking advanced features and larger screens in the typical September timeframe. 6 months following the autumn launch, Apple will release the base iPhone 18 and the budget-oriented iPhone 18e in spring 2027. These models cater to price-sensitive clients and those seeking conventional looks without the newest premium technologies. Gurman anticipates this alternating pattern will continue for years to come, resulting in 5 to 6 new iPhone models launched annually. Such frequency exceeds the present single annual cycle, allowing larger coverage of market segments throughout the year. The reform addresses increased rivalry, especially in China, where homegrown businesses like Huawei and Xiaomi debut flagship devices multiple times yearly. These releases keep competitors visible and relevant across seasons. Apple now lacks fresh product introductions in the first part of the year, creating a period where its existing gadgets receive less attention as they age. Analyst Ming-Chi Kuo identifies this time as the marketing gap that rivals exploit. By scheduling launches in March or April alongside September, Apple wants to fill this hole and sustain consumer engagement year-round. Samsung and other Android manufacturers contribute to this dynamic by releasing their premium models early in the year, generating early attention and sales, while Apple's portfolio remains unchanged. iPhone sales contribute for around 50 to 55% of Apple's total income, with the majority concentrated in the fall launch period. This seasonality leads to pronounced sales spikes followed by quieter quarters. Distributing large releases across 2 seasons seeks to equal out demand, ensuring steadier income flow and continued market presence. So, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more exciting tech news and updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.